Greetings and welcome to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast. I'm Kojo Bafo, and this podcast is an extension of my book by the same name. In the book Listen to Your Footsteps, I share in a collection of essays, anecdotes, and poems some of the lessons life has taught me on lost identity, fatherhood, work, and everything in between. Having also worked in various parts of the media, one of the things I've always appreciated has been the opportunity to get a peek into the paths that other people have taken. This podcast is an opportunity for me to continue to learn from others, but also share with you the wisdom that they have gained on their journey. So firstly, thank you for opening yourself up to this. Let's get going into this episode. My guest is a man who was actually MC at my wedding. Yusuf Rasdien is a comedian, actor, and writer who is part of a new young generation of comedians who laid the foundation for what stand-up comedy is in South Africa today. I chat to him about how he got into the industry, his struggles with depression in these trying times, as well as fatherhood. Thank you for coming onto the podcast, Mr. Rasdien.
Thank you, Coach Opaso.
What's a day in the life of Joey Rasdien like right now?
Right now is, I think, because I had a bout of depression.
Okay.
A huge bout of depression. So basically, it's trying to start over, I think. Yeah. I'm not going to go into the... I'm not going to go into the reasons why I had... Yeah. But it's for obvious reasons. COVID and business not doing well. And I'm empty nest now because my son is gone to Cape Town. He's studying at UCT. And I don't see my daughter as often as I want to for various reasons. And we're not going to get into that. But yeah. So that is where I'm... So in a day... So if I must be honest, I wake up. Sometimes I have breakfast. Sometimes I don't have breakfast. I then go to gym. Sometimes I gym. Sometimes I don't gym. I'm just there. And then I come back and maybe I'll read a little bit. And then I'll write a little bit. And then if I have a gig, which is very rare, I'll go do the gig. But yeah, that's the day in my life now.
So what's interesting for me with you is, you're in essence a Joburg person. I mean, it often feels like there's very few actual Joburg people because the rest of us just come from elsewhere.
Yes, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. People like you and your house partner, because I see you call each other that now.
My housemate.
It's not, your housemate is not from Joburg. Yeah. So, I think I'm one of the few people that actually grew up. No. There's lots of people that grew up in Joburg, but I think I'm one of, in the industry that we were in. Yeah.
So what was growing up like? I mean, what was it that you wanted to do when you grew up?
So there was two things that I really wanted to do. One was play cricket for South Africa. That was like on my heart. And I guess if I was growing up like Hakim, my son was growing up, I probably would have played for South Africa. But because I didn't, because I went to a different school. We don't want to speak about the past, but the recent hearings that CSA had just showed you what a disadvantage we were at the time, actually. So to get as far as we got was testament to our talent.
So it was cricket, and what was the other one?
And the other one was I wanted to become an imam.
Are you serious?
I'm serious, yeah. Like I wanted to become a religious leader, basically.
And then you go from that to, which I don't know if a lot of people know about you, but you go from that to ending up as what? A financial advisor, a financial person.
At finance, yes. Then I went into finance. So also by mistake, I went into finance because I went to university and then I studied BSc and then I failed. Then I failed badly. And then I started BCom and then it was round knocks and then I did CFP. I worked at Alexander Forbes and then I went to this place called Punmul Farm where they headhunted these people. And then they gave us money to basically study because CFP was kind of new at the time and nobody knew what it was, and it wasn't like FICA registered at the time, and so the financial landscape changed in terms of who could give advice and who could invest money and stuff. So then I landed up there, and I hated it. My goodness, I hated it. So and in that time, you all obviously know I met B, and then in that time I got married, and then B was like, "No, brah, I'd rather go do this other thing, the stand-up thing that you love so much." And then that's when I realized that I actually love stand-up more than anything else.
I mean, you were part of kind of an era where all of these things were literally just starting out.
Yes.
It wasn't, I mean, we watched stand-up in terms of internationally, but within the South African market, there were like one or two guys, but even the one or two guys were trying to find their way through this thing. I mean, I remember people like, David Gao coming and performing at poetry nights. Because
I was going to say that.
That was the one place you could actually jump on a stage. So
yes.
How do you go from, how do you go from sitting relatively comfortable? I mean, yes, you hated it, but you look good in your pinstripe suits and everything else. But
you still remember that?
Yeah, no, I still remember that. But how do you go from the stability of that to going, I'm going to try out in a space that there are no reference points for you?
My mother used to say, you become like the people you hang out with. So if you lay with the dogs, you're going to catch flies. So luckily for me, at the time, my friends was always these positively people that looked at the world differently, including you. So you looked at the world differently. So that pinstripe suit and stuff was like the way I grew up. Oh, wow. That was the measure of success. The measure of success wasn't your internal happiness. It was outside factors, what car you drove, what clothes you wear. So it wasn't within. And that's what B taught me valuable lessons when it came to that. And that's why I did stand up. And luckily for me, David was there, and Kagiso, and Riyad, and Chris Forrest, and Loiso. So we all saw the world basically the same, and we all had this ultimate goal to start some sort of industry in South Africa that specifically catered for the non-white market.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, at the makes time, perfect sense. Because there was nobody.
And also at the time, our audiences was white. So if you're going to perform, you're going to perform with Meow Miller and John Vlismus and Joe Parker and Barry Hilton, and the whole audience members was white brassa.
Yeah.
And then that's why David did blacks only and so forth. And then obviously, as we are now 20 years later, Coach.
Wow.
20 years later, now we're in a space where there is world famous comedians that we were part of giving a platform to. And that's something that I think we should be proud of.
Yeah, and the kids are looking at the space and going, okay, this is an avenue for me. Whereas before, it's if I want to enter the industry, here are one of the things that are available to me.
Yes. And with TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and all those, you don't even need a stage. So you'll see some 17-year-old that's making comedy videos and sketches on TikTok, and they're making more money than a normal comedian, basically. Yeah. So so what happened was, I think, just to give some sort of context, is that before there wasn't an industry when I came in, and then we tried, and I think we succeeded to create an industry, and now there is an industry. So now it's on to the next one. So I think the next big mission for us, I know David Kao and Kagiso specifically, is to create a South African movie industry where we can compete with the likes of Bollywood and Nollywood. But we won't now because we don't have the same buying power. Yeah. But in terms of quality, and producing pictures that can compete on a world level, I think that's our next goal.
How did you approach it when you... Yeah. Sorry, yeah?
So when people go oh, I want to watch a South Korean movie, they go, they're going to get quality. Similarly, if you're going to say, I want to watch a South African movie, they must go, we're going to get quality.
What was that journey into stand-up like, in terms of like the craft of it? Because it's one thing to be funny, right? It's one thing to be funny, but to do as a starting point stand-up, there's a craft involved. It's not just I'm a funny guy, so I'm going to go and do this thing. So what was that journey like, especially in those early days when you guys were all crafting and trying to find your space within it?
So I think in the early days, it was easy for us because, one, we didn't know actually what we were capable of, or we didn't know the craft behind it. So all you do is you go on stage and you hone that craft. Later in life, you come, like if you're going to write a poem, for instance, then you're going to have a subject, then you're going to have an observation, and then you're going to have to match that observation, the subject, with your internal feeling. So it's just a storytelling. And the way you tell the story, then you get to the nitty gritty of, this is going to make people laugh, and this is going to not going to make people laugh. But when we started, we didn't know what is going to make people laugh or not. We didn't know. It was just one of those things where you go and you express how you feel. And now, funny enough, ironically enough, I just go on stage and express how I feel now. So at the beginning, it was just a cathartic experience. And then in the middle, it was honing the craft and understanding the mechanisms and understanding the audience and understanding what you can say and what you can't say and all. And then now it's back to where we started for me, where I just go on stage and it's a cathartic experience.
I mean, the one thing about you is that a lot of people, there's like two layers to your stand-up in particular. And a lot of people would catch on to your personality, and then you have the big afro and your tone and your mannerisms, and people catch on to that and lose and actually miss the layers beneath it.
Yes. And that counted for me for a long time. Because I don't know, it was an unintentional gimmick, because people think, here's this clown, and then what comes out of the clown's mouth is a bit dissonant to them, and then they go, oh wow, we have to take note now of what he's saying, and then it allowed me, that gimmick allowed me to speak about certain things that I wouldn't normally speak about, like evolution and like. So it's easier to become irreverent when you have such a persona, because then it gets passed off like, he's just this clown guy. But then when they think about it, then they go, oh wow, I didn't think about it that way. And that ultimately is the master of stand-up. That's why Dave Chappelle is like one of the best stand-ups ever, because he mastered that craft. Where he goes on stage, not only is he funny, but you go, oh my goodness, I can't believe he said that. But I can see why, for instance.
And it's also, I mean, at the end of the day, it's social commentary. I mean, that's why I always enjoyed, for example, like Chris Rock. It's like, it's making you think about life in general. If you allow yourself to be reflective, you will realize that there's a lot more in there than just okay, it's funny.
Yes, so that's the whole point of stand-up, I think, is that to be reflective, so that society can see and feel and hear what they're thinking. So if you, I normally judge a successful gig by not how many people laughed, but how many people was enthralled and in my brainwave and in my stream of thought. So you don't have to laugh. If you in the stream of thought, if you on the boat and then we go on this journey together, that is how I normally judge a successful stand-up performance. So I like to watch certain guys because I love going on a journey with them. Then you get other guys that's just extremely funny, but there's no journey. It's just, do you understand what I'm saying? So that's why I like Chappelle, because he takes you on a journey. Or Chris Rock takes you on a journey. Whereas guys like certain British comics, which is extremely famous and extremely funny, don't necessarily take you on that journey. And even those ones like Eddie Izzard and Ricky Gervais, they still take you on the journey, but it's what's this word? A controversial journey, perhaps? Yeah. So, and then you get obviously the slapstick ones, the ones that just like Kevin Hart, for instance, which I love, and but I can't watch him because it doesn't take me on that journey.
Yeah.
Do you understand? But it's funny. But the stuff he says is funny.
No, I mean, I agree with you, and I've always leaned more towards the ones that do make me think, that do make me, even if I'm laughing, but also kind of take a pause. And I've never really enjoyed the slapstick side of it. And I mean, I think like I collect stand-up comedy DVDs. I still have a whole bunch of them, but it's, I guess, by nature of also our personalities, like you're gonna lean towards what makes sense for you, and it's beautiful that there are multiple people available regardless of what you're interested in.
Yes, like for instance, one of my favorite comics ever of all time is Stephen Wright, and Stephen Wright he just have one-liners basically the whole show. Like his entire show is just made out of one-liners. And that is brilliant. That craft, that is because I can still speak and use my personality and my mannerisms to make people laugh. Whereas a guy like Stephen Wright has to have a punchline all the time. And I sometimes don't have punchlines, I sometimes speak. So one of my favorite comics of all time is Stephen Wright. Yet, he doesn't take you on a journey.
I think the journey is once you leave. Right. So with him, it's down the line. One of the lines kind of comes back and you're like, or something happens and you're like, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it was. Like, because he was the first guy to speak about a revolving door slamming you, for instance. Like, he all these Facebook things about Chuck Norris and it was invariably Stephen Wright's comedy back in the day, in a late 70s, early 80s. Invariably. It's like, it's just being honed into today's world. Like, for instance, you send a SMS from Telkom telephone, for instance. Like, Stephen Wright would come up with stupid shit like that, and you crack up like, my goodness. Like, I wanted to put a skylight in my apartment, but the people upstairs wasn't too happy about it. like stuff like that. Then you're like, my goodness, this guy. There was I went into the office and this girl had 38s pointed at me, and then she took out the guns. So that I think what I loved about that is it takes you, it's escapism. That's it. Escapism. So you get certain comics that is escapisms. Like if you watch Kagiso, and then it's like a escapism. If you watch Loyiso and David, it's like a social commentary. If you watch me, it's storytelling and just being irreverent on the journey. So, and in South Africa, it's been like that. If you watch Mashabela is that escapism, And then if you watch Skumba, and then Skumba is escapism and commentary together. So it's and our comedy evolved, and I'm proud that we've been part of it. Like that.
And then from there you kind of expanded into let's say acting, writing for screen. Was there a plan, or was it just this is the opportunity? Opportunities that are there?
Yeah. It was none of it was planned. It was just like, here's an opportunity. Oh, do you want to be part of this movie? Do you want to write this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? So it's like up until today. And I need to write a book. But up until today, I still don't like writing. I still don't like. So if you come with a script and I read it, and then I can go, this and this can change, and this and this can change, and this protagonist is not powerful enough, and this antagonist is a bit weak and stuff. So in terms of that, I like that. But in terms of me sitting down and writing a scene, I don't like that. Yeah, that's hard.
So what do you consider? Hard. I mean, what do you consider yourself? Like, if
people ask me now,
I always struggle is like, what do you do? Like, what do you consider yourself?
So I consider myself as a comedian, first and foremost. I consider myself as a person that can change people's social perceptions, and I have this responsibility to be able to impart certain messages in a funny way, and leave people better for it. And that's what I consider myself as. Always have been, and I always will, because that is a huge responsibility. Unfortunately, and as you know, for the first time in my life, the cliche about comedians is the most depressed people on earth. For the first time in my life, I can understand why people say that, because our healing process and our getting over that was always used on stage. And once the stage is not there, and then you can't heal yourself, basically. So the energy that you have built up, you can't release it. And yeah, now and then you understand why Robin Williams was in a place where he was. Now you can understand why Jim Carrey is painting now, because that's his new outlet. So yeah. So now I understand the psychology behind the cliche that comedians is normally the most depressed people on earth. And it's true, actually.
So
I never thought about
what's your next outlet? I mean, how do you see it? Because the reality is that we're living in a world where we're totally surrounded by uncertainty, right? We don't know what next year is going to look like. We don't know what 2-3 years is going to look like. I mean, we don't know what next week is going to look like.
Yes. So my next outlet, and I think you will kind of relate to it, is how do I, as a father and as a person, make my kids' life better, and how do I support them in becoming the best they can be? And that is basically the next outlet, the next goal. Like, how do I, as a father, help my kids or be an example to my kids that the world is changing. It's not the way we saw the world. Because, when we were growing up, our parents always used to say, this world is different. The world is different. Now, I can confidently say to my kids, the world is different.
Yeah. Yeah.
When your parents is like, you were growing up and your parents like, when in our time we didn't have this and in our time we didn't have that. Now, then you thought, my parents are just making up this thing. Now, I can actually prove to them, look here, let's go Google 1994, what happened there. And then the proof is there, how different it is. And that, so what tools do I give my kids? Like for instance, your son plays basketball and he does music. And how are you going to steer him? How are you going to be the bow so that he can be the arrow? How are you going to be the stability of that bow? So, because I always...
So I was thinking about this yesterday, right? So my son has an assignment for English, right?
Right.
And I think you're the best person to talk about this because of the journey that you've gone through, right? So he has this assignment for English. This is grade 8, so he's 14 years old. But the assignment is, there are 3 cell phone companies. They all want you to be a brand ambassador. You must decide which one you're going to go with on the basis of their advertising. You must then compare their advertising, right? To justify your decision using advertising principles. And then you must so you must do research and annotate this research. And then you must write a blog post as to why you chose that specific brand. And I was sitting there and I was going, this is 14-year-old. This is grade 8 English. Like,
bruh,
that's preparing
sounds like Vega.
him. Yeah, but that's preparing him for the world in a way that even I, who reads a lot of stuff, goes, okay, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, that's like Vega second year Vega. It's like by the time you get out of school is a thesis.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. For Hakeem to get into university for art, he had to do a thing on hashtags, on a hashtag, and the paintings on hashtags. And you would appreciate this. You would appreciate this a lot. So this is the start. That's a self-portrait.
Okay.
That's the hashtag. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And this is oil on canvas. So this is the start. And then you move on, and then you'll see how you lose yourself. So you lose yourself by not being yourself.
Yeah, because listeners can't see, but I mean, in essence, it's the first picture is the self-portrait within their little social media handles, but then the next is a series of, in essence, portraits where the skin is dripping off, because you lose, like you're saying, you lose yourself. Yeah, man, that's another level of thinking. Like I spend a lot of time thinking about stuff, but that's a whole nother level, because it ends literally with just a skeleton. And the colors. I'm looking at the colors, and the colors are the colors of the different social media platforms.
Yes. And it was done on oil on canvas, and he wrote a whole book on it. A whole book on this thing. But he didn't include this, but this is my favorite one, where he basically says that we all just become clowns.
Yeah. Picture of a clown. Yeah. You're listening to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast, conversations with Africans who are navigating this world on their own terms while trying to live life to the best of their ability.
So, coming back to that English, for a 14-year-old, I can see how that happens, because the stuff, I know your daughter also, the stuff that they speak about and the stuff that they ask you, you're like, no, man. Yeah, there's this thing called Google. Please, leave me out of this.
I mean, look, leave me out of this. I think to a certain extent, how did you handle it? Because I mean, B passed away, and you are now building a career in a new space, and at the same time having to raise this young boy who has lost his mother, and navigating your own emotions, navigating your own loss, and also just trying to ensure that you create a foundation for him to, I lost my mother as a child, and one of the things that I learned was, like, you carry it with you in weird ways, but at least I look at my father, like my father raised me, and I've always looked at you and gone, I think Hakeem is lucky to have had also a father who said, I'm going to do the best that I can.
Yes. So that's all we can do. I can tell you this. The heartache and the depression when B passed away is nothing, absolutely nothing compared to the heartache and the depression I felt in the past 2 weeks, say 3 months. Nothing. And the ironic thing is that it's out of my hands. Whereas with B, for people, the listeners that don't know, so Kojo knows me for a very long time, and he knows B, and B was sickly. So B needed a heart transplant. So when she passed on, it was more of a relief, because I couldn't take the suffering anymore. Like, I couldn't take suffer anymore. I couldn't take that. We have to go to a mall in a wheelchair with her in an oxygen tank. Like at the time, it felt normal. At the time, it felt normal for me to sleep in the hospital. It felt normal for me to, so at the time, you don't see that. But looking back, you're like, I made through that. But it's still not as, maybe I was young that time. Maybe I had Akeem that time. Right now, Akeem, like for instance, says to me the other day, yo, Dad, I got a new job. If you need money, I'll send you some money. He's 19.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? He's 19, staying in Cape Town at university. And that may, because it's an ironic thing, because you're proud of your child, but it makes you feel insufficient. If that makes, it's like an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Like you're so proud of him and he's doing so well, but then in the same time you feel like, I failed as a father type vibe.
At the same time, but it's testament to the fact that because you've raised this child, right? I mean, like from when he was 5, 6 years old?
4, when he was 4.
Right? So from when he was 4, the reason why he's sitting at 19 years old and being able to say that is because of everything that you have done since then.
Yes.
But I get there's the rational and the logical that says, I did all of this, but there's what's like in the heart, like in the quiet places, that's illogical, right? But it's
exactly.
But it's no less real.
You see, that's why I love speaking to you all the time, Coach, because you understand. So that is a conflicting emotion in me. It's So on the one hand, you're proud, and on the other hand, you have to remind yourself, like, why is my son actually offering me money? I'm supposed to buy him a car, basically.
So when I worked on my book, one of the things that I wrote about is, so my father's last couple of years. Hopefully this makes you feel slightly better. But my father's last couple of years, I would phone him and I'd do a little work somewhere and I'll be like, listen, I'm transferring, he has $5,000. I'm transferring $5,000, right? Because that's all I could afford. And then you'd find like a couple of weeks later, he's also done something because we were both in extreme debt, right? So he's also done a little gig somewhere, and you'd be like, listen, I'm just gonna. It wasn't even a do you need or how much do you need. It was just like when I've got, I'm gonna cut you a slice, and when you've got, you're gonna cut me a slice. And after my father passed away, one of the things that I take pride in is that he was not perfect. I am not perfect. But I was there, let's call it to the end. So I knew that when he needed support, I supported him. And when I needed support, he supported me. Because also when they grow older, it becomes very weird because we start to become the parent and they start to become the child in some instances. So
I feel that already.
You guys already laying the foundation for that, and you're both still young.
Yes, I feel that already. Yeah, I even feel that with my daughter. Like my daughter helps me through emotional, because I haven't worked for such a long time.
Yeah.
So normally I can't and also the other thing is, for the first time, like the last 2 years, I realized what a privileged life we had. Because I could go to Cape Town whenever I want to. I'll go to Durban whenever I want to. Like, it wasn't an issue. It was just there. It was a normal thing.
Yeah.
Like, it was, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now it's like, I can't even buy my daughter a new game, for instance. So it's a very, it's something that, so now I'm staying in this flippin' huge house all by myself, empty nest, basically. So now I need to move to a smaller, and if it wasn't for COVID, I would probably be in Sudan right now or Senegal.
Yeah.
You know, like and doing those things. You know, like we don't normally post on social media and Instagram and stuff, but those things, I can't do those things anymore. Like, I can't just take a drive to Swakopmund, for instance.
Yeah.
Whereas that was a normal thing, like go hike the Otter Trail. It's like a normal thing, but now that normality is like, it's in your face now, like you can't, because now COVID restrictions, because you don't have money, because lots of factors. So that's also a thing. And then also relationships. Like, yes, I haven't been in a relationship for 100 years, basically.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, we were having this conversation the other day, and it was, at the end of the day, when one looks at the landscape, let's call it the single landscape, it's like, rather stick with what you know, because it just looks hectic out there, and then add COVID to the equation, where you literally can't meet up with people. It's something like, else.
Yeah, it's completely, and then the funny thing is, it's like for certain people, it's the opposite. Like now they thrive in relationships, or there's lots of. Then you're like, where the hell did you meet these people? How even is this possible? Like, I can't imagine how. And then also you meet a person and you really like the person, and then you realize, fuck, I have lots of baggage. My heart is blocked. And similarly to the next person, and then you get to a point where it's stuck. We're like, now I can't go further. Now what? And then you just give up, and you're like, let her rather just focus on my kids. And then, or you try and rekindle old things, and then you met with rejection, and then you don't know how to deal with that rejection. So it's being an adult is hard.
Yeah, and it's the dream that we're all sold. The adults told us, but we never listened. So it's one of those things where you actually have to go and experience it, because it's like, I look at my kids now and I'm like, I'll say, do you know what? Enjoy it. Eh? Like, what you mean you want to go work? What you mean you want to do? I want to make my own money. Nah, like, you're living rent free. You're living rent free right now. I mean, I was joking the other day. I was tweeting the other day. So my daughter decides she's going to fall asleep on the couch downstairs.
I read that. And then you asked her, who's gonna take you to the bed?
Yeah, who's gonna take you to bed? She's like, but you.
Yeah. So again, I know that experience. I've been there. I've been there where my daughter's like, now I want to sleep here now. But how are you gonna get to the room? But you, my father, you must sort that out.
I was like, I wish my father was still around to carry me to bed. And she was like, what are you asking me such a stupid question for? Like, it's very simple. Like, I'm going to sleep here, and then you are going to take me to my bedroom. Like, that's the way the world works.
That's the way the world works. But fortunately, our kids think like that.
Yeah.
Fortunately, our kids feel safe enough to think like that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's so true.
And fortunately, my kids specifically feel safe enough to tell me, yo, Dad, you like Akim will call you out. No, you're being a stupid here now. What are you doing now? Like my daughter will call me out. She'll be like, no, don't project your emotions onto me. You need to go see a shrink. Like, she's seeing a shrink. So don't come project your emotions on me. I'm still a child. Why are you treating me like an adult? Don't come tell me about your emotional turmoil that you're going on. So we're lucky that our kids can recognize that, firstly. And secondly, although they don't, because imagine when we were growing up and you see your mother and father did not ever cry in front of you.
Yeah,
ever.
that's true.
they never cried in front of me. There was always a strong thing like, to see your father cry or your mother cry, it was like you. And the only time I saw my mother also passed away when I was young. Both my parents, as you know, my parents passed away when I was young, like my father 9, my stepfather 12, my mother when I was 18. And in that years, I only saw my mother cry twice. Once when my father died, and the second time when my stepfather died.
Sure.
No other time.
I actually wrote about the fact that I don't think I ever saw my father cry.
Yeah.
And my father, my father's my only parent. My father died when I was, 46, 45?
Recently. I remember clearly.
And it occurred to me afterwards, I'm like, I don't think I'd ever seen him cry. And I know he had been through some really heavy and tough times.
Yeah, same. I haven't seen. Now I cry in front of my kids. And my kids is like, no, bruh, get it together now. Get it together. What nonsense is this? Your parents shouldn't be crying. It's like how the world's changed. Like, you've never seen. Yeah, the world's changed completely. But now I realize what effect it has on kids when you don't show emotional strength.
Mm.
Yeah. So no matter what you're going through as a parent, don't ever let it show to your children, because that is worse for them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's that balance between. I think it's a balance between them seeing your journey,
vulnerability,
and recognizing that you are on a journey like they are, but also being able to get through it, because they depend on you. You know, they depend on you to be able to.
And their feeling is like, and I can see it in your kids, is like, I'm not here to take you through that, bruh. You have to do that yourself. I'm your child. You have to take me. When I'm feeling like that, then you must take me. If you're feeling like that, no, I can't take you, bruh. Step back. And that is the bottom line, what I've learned of having kids 10 years apart.
Mm.
So what applies for Leia doesn't apply to Akeem, and what applies to Akeem doesn't apply to Leia. And that's a huge adjustment to be made.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I think you learn when you have more than one kid. So first of all, it's also discovering that you can actually love wholeheartedly.
Yes.
Two different people. Like it doesn't diminish, but at the same time, because they're different human beings, you have to modify how you do things.
Yes.
While not showing favoritism.
And you know how difficult that is.
Because they absorb. I mean, I've seen it with my kids, where my son will take things a lot more personally than my daughter will.
Yeah.
But I still need to reprimand them. They still both need to be reprimanded. Like you've messed up. You need to get you get a lecture for having messed up.
Yeah.
But I can use the same tone, but one will be interpreted as me being unnecessarily harsh, and the other one will be interpreted as, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I get you.
I know exactly. Yeah, I know exactly that feeling. And also, when you show favoritism, when they defend each other, my goodness, that's the worst. When both of them are on their side, and then that is the worst, bruh. Because they're very close. So if I hurt Hakeem, luckily for me, Hakeem has never been in trouble. Like, yes, touch wood, but he's old now, so I don't care. But why? But he's never been. It was stupid stuff, like running on the field while they play rugby game, for instance. Stupid stuff. It wasn't Leia also. It wasn't hectic stuff. But what you said about loving You can't, because yeah, what's this word? Kojo, you a wordsmith, man. Like, because you love them the same.
Yeah.
But the way you show the love has to be different.
Different, yeah.
Yes, has to be different. Otherwise, it's just going to cause more. And I didn't realize that. Only recently when Leia turned 9. Now I'm like, I can't do the same things I did with Hakeem with Leia, thinking that I'm doing the right thing, for instance. Yeah. And vice versa.
So what's been interesting for me, because my kids, they're 4 years apart. So what's been interesting is watching them become friends as my daughter grows older.
Yeah.
Because as the younger one grows older, then they can start to have conversation. Like in the early days, it was just but now it's watching them, watching them become friends, which has been quite interesting for me in terms of that journey.
Yeah. The other thing is, and you'll see the protectiveness that comes out, how they protect each other, how they protect each other, even to your detriment.
But you're the common problem, right? Like the parent is the common problem. Like they're the children. You are the common problem.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and it's the truth, though. We are the common problem. And also the other thing is, because I have kids with 2 different people, that's also a different dynamic. That's a huge difference. That's a different dynamic. And that also maybe plays part in the depressive state, not the depressive state, because the decisions that you expect to be made is not the same, like, for instance, it would have been done in the past. So,
yeah.
The evolution.
So, I mean, in terms of, we know that we've been through, well, not been through, we're going through this whole global pandemic situation. And one of the things that I believe that we have to do is each of us has to reflect on what's important. And also just in terms of what makes sense in terms of how we do things and live. So in terms of what's important, I mean, I think both you and I have both recognized what's important, and our lives have been structured with that. Right. But what I'm finding is that I'm having to relook at, let's call it work, because I'm not building a career. And somebody was asking me the other day, how have you navigated your career? I'm like, first of all, I'm not building a career, like I'm building a life, right? Because I've done so many different things. So in terms of kind of where you are now with the landscape in terms of gigs, etc. I saw you've been playing around in TikTok and all of these things. And TikTok was the first time I had to get one of my children to show me how something works.
All the time.
So I mean, what is kind of like, what is the next they say 6 months or a year or 2 years or 5 years looking at for you in terms of evolving how within the environment that's also in change? So I mean, like there's stand-up, there's comedy, there's I mean, there's all of these, there's storytelling, let's call it that. There's storytelling, because you're a storyteller, you just have particular mediums that you've been using. How are you looking at it going forward?
So you inspired me by notes. What's your book called? No, I saw it the other day.
Listen to Your Footsteps.
Listen to Your Footsteps, right? The notes, right? So you inspired me. I'm going to also attempt writing a book about my story. So that's the first thing. I didn't have a publisher or anything. I have a couple of chapters, but we'll get back to that. At the end of this month, we're shooting another movie called The Umbrella Man with John Barker, the director of Bunny Chow. You remember Bunny Chow? Yeah. So the director of Bunny Chow, and he did Spud and he did Spud 2. We're starting to shoot the end of September, and I'm producer on that one. It's about the Klopse band that robs the bank during the carnival.
Okay.
Basically, but but the reasons for that is gentrification. So here's a couple of guys that's trying to save a culture. And how do they save this culture? By using the culture to rob the bank during a heist, during the carnival. So that's the movie that we're starting to shoot. And in Material 2, new material, that's releasing in November. And then there's another movie I did called The Gang that's releasing next year, February. And then hopefully, please God, inshallah, that we'll shoot Blitz Patrol 2 with me and David and Kagiso again, because Blitz Patrol has been doing well on Netflix. And then other than that, I just want to move into a small place, get a small car, and grow old, basically, like read more books, and do stand up when the opportunity is there. Like the one thing that I've realized is in COVID, you need to create an opportunity to do stand up. And I think I'm past that because it's too much emotional investment, because I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I do it because I love doing it. I love to do stand-up. I always love to do stand-up, and I'll always do it with enjoyment, and it's always the best thing for me. And whatever comes from it, money, that's a bonus. So when it comes to stand-up, I don't think I'm going to create opportunities to do the stand-up, but if there is opportunities to do the stand-up, I will. So that's where, and in the next 5 years, hopefully, my son Hakim will be finished with his degree, and he'll probably move to Tokyo or somewhere, Cambodia or some shit like that. And then I'll be just a solid parent for my daughter.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Cool. Thanks, my man.
Thank you for having me, Coach Buffo. The people that don't know, are you still doing poetry? This guy.
I haven't done poetry. I haven't done poetry in like 10 years, bro. I haven't even been writing really. Like I included a couple in the book, just a couple of poems. But yeah, I keep saying one day I'll go back. Like, or one day I'll do it. But the getting on the stage part, I don't know.
Yeah. So what was I gonna say again? And for the listeners that don't know, this is a bad thing to say, but the first person I ever saw in real life with cornrows, the first person I saw with cornrows in real life, not in real life, was Gojo Buffo. Because the other people, because you normally see it on TV, and you saw that time it was a studio mix. You normally see it on studio mix, and you normally see those people exhibit. He had it, and then in real life, he was a guy that's got cornrow. Real life, my goodness, it was something strange to me. Yeah,
cool, my man.
Thank you for listening to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast. Please do subscribe and leave a review wherever you're listening, and share with friends you feel would enjoy the conversation as well. I'd appreciate comments, thoughts on my site, kojabuffer.com. To be able to build and grow this podcast and get a sense of kind of where we're going, your input is extremely important. One of the things that I've been thinking of doing is running a couple of ad hoc episodes where I answer or respond to any questions that you may have. So if you do have any type of questions, please do send them to me on my site or on various social media platforms. I am available on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and maybe with enough questions, I can get to do an episode where I share my views beyond just sharing the views of some of the people that I get to interview. I get to share my views, a lot of which are in my book, with you, my faithful listener. I'm hoping that there are a lot of faithful and growing listeners out there. But have yourselves a great one, and I'll be back with the next episode soon. Thank you.